Hi, is it true that interpreters have forgotten their responsibility in the society today? You, as a deaf person, what opinion do you have when it is concerning the interpreters? Join me in this vibrant discussion whereby I will be discussing the responsibilities of interpreters in the society today. My name is Juliet, and welcome to Inspired Hands Ministries. Now, what's the responsibility of interpreters? If you are an interpreter, do you know clearly your responsibility in the society when it comes to the deaf culture? Most of the people have this thought that if you know sign language, then you can be an interpreter. Fine. I remember when I was a student in Kise, my lecturer said that if you know sign language, that does not give you a warranty that you can be an interpreter. And she tried to explain her points very clearly. Remember, this lecturer was deaf, so she knew what she was talking about. Now, if you know sign language and you have been certified to be an interpreter, what's your responsibility? Do you know your responsibility? Some people who they're associating themselves with the deaf have really oppressed the deaf people in different ways. So originally, deaf people didn't have interpreters. Deaf people had friends or family members who knew how to communicate with them. And so, if they had anything which they wanted to share with other people who were hearing, they would possibly call the hearing friends who acted as interpreters for them. And this mode of communication was not best because these people sometimes would say what they think, but not what the deaf person feel and thinks. And that's where the problem starts. Your responsibility as an interpreter is to voice. Your work is to voice what the deaf person is saying, is signing, and the vice versa. Some interpreters have taken this job, like they become the chief advocates of the deaf people. In which way? These interpreters or the hearing, they think that the deaf person cannot make any decision in their lives. And so they decide for them. They say what they themselves think is best for the deaf person, which is wrong. We need to live in a society whereby these people who are deaf have a big platform to talk about what they feel in their lives. And sometimes we speak on their behalf, which is not good. The only time you as an interpreter you need to speak is when you see the life of a deaf person is in danger. That's when you can bring your own advice. When you have recognized that the deaf person's life is in danger, that's when you are allowed to give your own advice. Number two, you as an interpreter, you need to have a good relationship with the deaf people, because you cannot go to interpret for a deaf person and at the same time you don't have the respect for the deaf. No, it can never happen. You need to respect a deaf person. Maybe you might not agree with what they are saying, but don't disagree with don't disagree with the deaf. Maybe you can disagree with their opinion, because sometimes maybe both of you are just interacting or just having your own personal conversations. Then this person says something which you feel is not good, and maybe you are not satisfied with that. So don't have a bad attitude because you feel that whatever this deaf person has said is no good. I don't agree with that. No, that's not your responsibility. Your work is to interpret what the deaf person has signed, voice to these people who are hearing. Number 3, your work as an interpreter. Please help and show the deaf person where and how and when things need to be done, especially when they're in a setup which have a hearing. Maybe it's a conference or it's church. Maybe there's something which is happening. Your work is to show the deaf people, come sit here, because when I'll be interpreting, I want you to understand and to be engaged in what I am talking about and what is happening in this conference or in church. So search for the best sitting position for the deaf person. It's this okay, but before I go on, when it's come to leadership in different departments, that's something that I've always wanted to speak about. In different departments, in different setups, who are the leaders in these different, if it concerns the deaf, okay, people with disability, who is their leader? Because I believe, and I've seen some places whereby it's, let me say, there are some places whereby the deaf are being led by people who are hearing, and that is so wrong. We cannot speak about inclusion when we ourselves don't include these deaf people in the society. What do I mean? You as a hearing person, you cannot choose yourself to be their leader because you feel that they're not good enough to represent themselves. No, that's wrong. Let the deaf, let people with disability be their own leader. Maybe you can just be there to see what's happening. If there's something you need to add, fine. But don't make that all the things which you're saying, that's all. You're the only person who knows the truth, and you know what's best for the deaf. You know what they need to know. No, that's being selfish. That's being mean. Because you feel that you're good enough, the deaf are not good enough. We are not doing that. This is the time when we need to help the deaf people. Not only the deaf, but people with different types of disability to speak for themselves. There are some people who think that they're best speakers, and so they want to talk on behalf of the deaf. That's wrong. Please change your mind. Let's change that attitude which we have. Think about that. Could it be that you have maybe you didn't know, maybe you talked on their behalf and you made decision for them, but now you know, right? Knowledge cannot be considered complete when it is ignoring the experiences of a group of people. And when we live in a world whereby it is being interpreted, that's not our home. A home whereby it's everything is being interpreted for you, it's not your home. We need to live in a society whereby we can shine our own light. We can speak with our own voice. We can see with our own eyes. And we can also hear with our own ears. What you need to do: have respect to the deaf people. There are some interpreters who don't respect the deaf. They always feel that this deaf person is stupid, always complaining about the deaf. You are not doing anything good, and that career which you are having is not yours. Please change and look for another job which you can do. Because if your work is always complaining about the deaf people, oh, the deaf did this, oh, the deaf never did this. We are here to bridge the gap between the hearing and the deaf. Bas. You as an interpreter, you know what's best for the deaf. You know what's best for the hearing. And that's why I think that all interpreters need to join the deaf people in creating awareness to the whole society. Because there are some people, example, there are some parents who have children who are deaf, but they don't know how to communicate with their children. And that's a topic for another day. Parents who have deaf children, how are you communicating with them? Let's put that one aside. You as your responsibility as an interpreter, please make sure that the deaf people have the best position to sit, so that they can understand, they can be included in whatever is happening in a specific place, specific time. When you are just seated or you're just interpreting and you know very well that where the deaf person, where the deaf person has sat is so far, where the deaf person has sat is so far that they cannot see you when you're interpreting. That's bad. That's not good. Your job is always to tell the people who are organizing, they're organizing maybe a conference or anything. Tell them in advance, early enough, that I have the deaf, and if the deaf are going to come, let them sit here. Let them sit in front, whereby there's no distraction, because some people love walking up and down. It's just walking. And when people are just walking in front of the deaf person, that means the communication, all the messages which is being sent, they are missing because there are a lot of distraction. Remember, the deaf person uses the eye as their ear. You understand? Is that clear? Are the deaf people seated? Number 2, interpret. There's a difference between signing and interpreting. That's another topic for another day. Let's put that one aside. Interpret so that the deaf person can understand. Because remember, we have 3 groups of deafness. The first group is a person who have profound deafness. This person has never heard anything. They cannot even speak anything because they've never heard any word. They were born fully deaf. The second group, we have partially deaf. This partial deaf, they use, maybe they can use cochlear or the hearing aid. They can use the hearing aid, which helps them to hear. So, meaning they're partially deaf. They can hear, yes, but they cannot hear so well for a long time. You understand? Then the third group of the deaf people is a person who became deaf, postlingual. We call it post deafness, meaning this became deaf at a later age, meaning they learned how to speak, they know and they can hear. In the past they could hear, but now later in their life they became deaf. So you as an interpreter, you needed to know that in all situations, these three groups of people are there. And there's some deaf who are there's some deaf who have gone to school and they're so learned. And sometimes it's good for you to ask, which is the best mode for me to interpret for you? Do I need to use KSL or SEE, Sign Exact English? When I'm talking about Sign Exact English, is whereby all the words in English language are signed. For example, if I am using Sign Exact English, I will say, my name is Juliet. That is Sign Exact English. My name is Juliet and I am a sign language interpreter. That is Sign Exact English. But if I am using KSL, I will say, my name, mine, Juliet, me, sign language interpreter. I think you've seen the two sentences. The first sentence was long because I signed all the words. And that's what other deaf people understand because they've gone to school, they have enough knowledge, they've learned, and they're so clear. Their English is so clear. They can understand and they can read Sign Exact English. But other deaf people cannot comprehend Sign Exact English. And so the best they can understand is sign language, pure KSL. You understand? So your responsibility as an interpreter, ask. If you're having a conference or a meeting or an interview, just ask. You want me to use KSL or Sign Exact English? Which one is best for you? Then, please, if a deaf person tells you which one they want, please stick with that. Don't change. Okay? Good. Now, another responsibility of an interpreter is always to help the deaf person know what's happening in the environment. In the environment where you are, maybe you stayed, or what is happening there. Because sometimes you find that people are, the conference, maybe it's over, people are going to eat, they're just socializing, story, people are laughing. Your responsibility, just let the deaf people know that the conference is over now. Maybe you can go and have your lunch, your tea, can eat, you can just socialize. Don't just leave the deafs there so they're like, is the conference over? What next do we need to do? What next? Like they just like, You see confusion they're having. They're confused. They don't know what they need to do. Your responsibility as an interpreter, please let the deaf person know that the conference is over, the meeting is over, the church service is over, the class is over. You can now go and do your own stuffs.